Hello! Welcome to the Watkins Museum of History. My name is Miss Amanda. Welcome to our Summer Games series. Each week we are theming our summer games after a new page from our brand new coloring book that we will be producing this fall. So we also have a contest. This is the cover of the coloring book. And as you can see, my friend colored this one. We're having a contest, and the winner will be able to be on the cover of the coloring book, and you can win a gift certificate to Silas and Maddie's. So go to the website, print it off, or come down to the museum and pick one up, and then enter to win that contest. Each week we are giving you one more page of the coloring book. This week is K. We did W, we did A, we did T, and now we're doing K. K is for the Kaw River. Lawrence is on the Kaw River, and we're gonna learn a little bit today about the river and the history of the town and how the river affected our past. An important part of industry in Lawrence history on the river, the Kaw River, are steamboats. Steamboats were an important part of American history altogether. They served as a way to bring people and supplies out to the west as America was growing to the west. Steamboats are very interesting. They were powered, as you can tell by the name, by steam, and their steam engine would power a paddle that would push them down the river. Another thing that was very interesting about them is they had to have a shallow bottom, because sometimes the river got shallow and you didn't want to get stuck on a sandbar or on the bottom of the river. They're a very important part because they didn't have airplanes, they didn't have other ways to travel out west, so the river was an important part of that. That's why so many towns are on rivers. Let's make our own little steamboat.
For your steamboat craft, you will need tape, rubber bands, scissors, some recycled cardboard, straws, a sponge, and then a body of water to try your boat in. First, take your sponge and cut it in half. You really can create your boat whatever size you like, but I think it works best if it's smaller. Gives it more oomph to go further. Cut the front into a point so that it breaks through the water. Next, take your straws and cut them so they will be perfectly fitting right next to your sponge boat. I cut mine a little bit more than in half. Tape your straws to the sides of the sponge, one on each side, so they stick out the back. I use packing tape because it's clear and it sticks very nicely, but you can use whatever tape you have at home. Now we want to make our paddle. This is a very simple process. Just cut your cardboard, and cardboard can be a little tricky, so maybe you ask your grown-up for help. And you cut a rectangle, and then you cut another rectangle that's the same size. Just like that. You're gonna cut a mark halfway through on each, and this magically will make them fit together like puzzle pieces so that it makes a 3D cross piece that's perfect for your paddle. Now you will take your rubber band and stretch it between your two straws. Then you will take your paddle and you want to stretch the rubber band around the paddle so that it's right down the center. What this will do is create the tension.
Now, since we don't have steam on our steamboat, we use the tension from the rubber band. So just twist it up so that it's nice and tight, and then put it in the water. and let it go, and you have a steamboat of your own. Another important part of our life around the Kaw River are the bridges that we have to build. You can see in the coloring page, our little car, Ellie, is driving across one of those bridges that crosses the Kaw River now. We obviously cross those bridges almost every day. Well, we want to build a bridge today. Those bridges would be used to move trains, people, and now cars. So let's build our own bridge in the style that might have been built 150 years ago. For this very simple craft, all you need are things you probably have at home. Marshmallows, I chose rainbow because they're pretty, and spaghetti. Now today, we are talking about the Kaw River, so we are going to be building a bridge. But what I love about this craft is you can use anything you want to build anything you want. Let's build a bridge like might have been over the Kaw River 150 years ago. This bridge might be used for trains or people walking across the bridge. The spaghetti is great because you can break it to any length you want and it will fit. When I make a bridge, I like to use triangles. They're one of the strongest shapes, and so it makes your bridge very strong. So what you can do is you can make the sidewalls of your bridge, and then once you do that, you can make the bottom of your bridge by attaching those two sidewalls. Let's look at the one that I built earlier this morning. Using that structure, we built this little bridge that looks a lot like some train bridges that even still exist today. Let's see if it works. You can build any structure you want and see if it goes over your body of water, like the bridges from the past. So we've talked about the importance of the river to Lawrence and Lawrence history. We've talked about the bridges over the Kaw River, and we've talked about how steamboats helped build the economy and bring people out west. But there's another really important thing that I think you might recognize that is part of our history that my friend Ryan is here to talk to us about. So tell us a little bit.
Yeah, so another really important effect the river has had on Lawrence is that it has the Bauerstock Mills down on it. And this was a really important piece of our history because back in Civil War times, we were struggling to get enough energy to power the town. So at that time, we were using things like wood and fuel to burn and make energy, but that wasn't sustainable, so we decided to look for another source, and this was the river. And so the dam was built, and shortly after, it was taken over by J.D. Bauerstock, and that's how it got the name the Bauerstock Mill.
Oh, so we know where the Bauerstock Dam is. It's still there today. That's very interesting. And I really like how that shows the resourcefulness of the people of Lawrence. But I also want to talk about the history even further back. Before Lawrence was founded by European settlers, the river is called the Kaw River, and that's very important. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Kaw River is named after the indigenous group of people who was living here before people settled in Lawrence. And this group was called the Kaw, and they were just a group of indigenous people who were living here before European Americans had settled here. And their first interactions were with European Americans were when Lewis and Clark were exploring the country. And later on, as more and more European Americans settled across the country, the Native Americans sort of got pushed out of their home when we moved in here. So today, they've settled in Oklahoma, but there are still several other tribes who live in Kansas, and they also have really important effects on the history of the state. That's the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Prairie Band, and the Sauk.
Well, and I really think it's so important to remember these people who lived here before us. And it's easy to remember them because of all of these names. So we think about the Kaw River and we can remember the people, the Kaw Nation, the people who lived here. They also are called the Kansas people, right? And that's the name Kansas, or also Kansas City. And then you said the Iowa as well. So it's really important to remember that a lot of our history comes from people who lived here even before Lawrence was founded, even before European settlers. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about this, you can come to the museum and talk to us, or you can also visit the Kaw Nation has a website with amazing accounts of their history and wonderful lesson plans that you can look at home. It's very important to remember this and think about all of the people that came before us. That's why we study our history, is to learn from it.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you for being here
Thank you.
today. We will see you next week. Goodbye.